All right, let's go ahead and get started. Firstly, welcome to today's nTop live session where we're going to talk about staying organized inside of nTop and making the notebook do as much as possible for you, getting the most value out of it. It can really help out a lot of not unthought ways you might not think of initially. And we're going to talk about that, some tips, tricks. I'm going to show you a file I created and exactly what I did. And we're going to talk about all the things I did to keep it organized and make it work really, really well. So let's start off with what we're doing here. We're going to say I'm a design engineer. My team was tasked to lightweight this bracket. We want to take this bracket, we want to reduce the mass. We don't have necessarily a target, but we want to reduce the mass, keep it as strong as possible. And we're looking at a couple different avenues. So there was latticing, topology optimization, just redesigning it, and a couple other ideas. But I was tasked with topology optimization. They said, okay, take a look, go do topology optimization on this part. We're going to compare and do all that sort of stuff. So I created a file that is the topology optimization of this bracket. And I created this. I sent it over to my team. We're doing some evaluations, and all that stuff takes time. So I make this file, and the day I make it, it makes perfect sense. But if you look at my notebook, it's a bit of a mess. And so generally what happens is I'll make this file. We're doing a couple of things. I'm working on a couple of other projects. And then I have to come back to this a month later, 2 months later, or even just a week later. And I look over here in my notebook and I have no idea what's happening. And let's say my team decided to come back and say, hey, we liked your initial result with the topology optimization. We want to go further. So take that, add in some more load cases that account for some unthought of forces, give us a couple of other iterations of it, and we want to print them out and actually test them. So now I need to come back into my file I created, and I need to change things. And if I come back to this, it's going to take me forever to make those changes. So if, say, I need to add another load case, I have to come in here, I have to decipher. And for you guys' reference, I made this file a week and a half ago, and I have not opened it until today. And that's real. So I don't remember where things are. So I'm going to have to decipher what's happening. So if I want to add another load case in to account for some small forces that might occur, I'm going to have to come in here. And right away, I can see I have way too many things open, and I got to find where I need to go. And it's going to take me a good bit of time to figure out exactly what's happening. And this isn't ideal. We could set this up in a way that I can add a load case and it's going to rerun for me right away because I know exactly where it is. If I want to go in and change something about the mesh, it's a little bit easier because I have the mesh there and I was able to see it because it was blue. But I still have to change all these things. I have to change both variables. And this is just a difficult process to deal with because I didn't keep myself organized. But if we go to my other file where I took this whole process and I started with that unorganized file and I organized it. And I haven't opened this file since last week either. So now I have this nice organized file. I can see I start with my CAD geometry up top, go to my FE model, my optimization objective, constraints, the actual topology optimization block, and then post-optimization work. So that's just my implicit work. So if I turn off the CAD view, I can come down to my final part, and right away I was able to find that. Now, why should you guys care about organizing your notebook? Let's take a look at how fast I can add in a new load case to this topology optimization. Here's my load cases, 1, 2, and 3, and here's my objective. So I can come into my objective, hit the plus button, double click, add a structural compliance response, all this sort of stuff, force, add all of this in. And I'm not going to run it because it would take too much time to get you a new result. But look how fast I was able to make this new response right here, load cases. Easy, super, super fast. Nothing to it at all. Nothing at all. You can pull out my load case just like this, turn it into a variable, pull it into there, load case 4. And now as soon as I fill it out, it's going to rerun, and it didn't make my notebook any messy at all, and I can still see what's happening. Now I'm going to back up to where we still have our answer, we can see how fast that is. Now, if I need to make a modification to my mesh, so if I turn on the view of my mesh here, I need to make a modification. Of course, I can come and take a look at my mesh. If I need to make a modification, I have this FE model, I got my mesh, I have a couple mesh settings, my edge length right there. I even have a little counter that I put out here for my elements. So I can change things and let everything happen again automatically right away, which is really, really awesome. Now, with all that in mind, what else? What other benefits are there? Well, now it's all parametric. So I can change anything at any point in time, like I was just doing, and it's going to rerun. So I can get those new iterations to my team as fast as humanly possible. We can take a look at these, we can modify, we can add, we can subtract, we can do whatever we need to do, and it's easy to find. Not only that, I could probably send this to a coworker of mine. Say I'm off the week they want to create these new iterations. I could just send them this file, and I guarantee he's going to be able to understand what's happening in this file and make those changes. With that, all of that in mind, that benefit that this organization gives you, let's take a look at how I organize this. Let's talk about it a little bit. First thing I say, work top down. So I always put my CAD geometry at the very top of my notebook. And sometimes it makes sense to have them living in other places too, but I always try to keep my CAD geometry at the very, very top of my notebook. So I know exactly where my CAD geometry is at all points in time. On top of that, when you open up a topology optimization block, there's three main sections. There's the model, the objective, and the constraints. Because of that, I broke them out into sections of my notebook. So I have an FE model section, so anything to do with my model, which is my mesh and my material, we have right here. We can take a look at all of it, everything, and it's right easy to find. It's not, you know, if we go to the other notebook like this, it's not 15 or 20 blocks deep that I need to comb through to figure out what I'm doing. We have a nice, easy way to see what's happening here. Now, to that respect, I did that with the objective, the constraints, the optimization, and my post-optimization work. I have them in these sections. And I used the comments that you can put on a block to create those sections, what you can see here. So this is the comment on my block here, and it creates this little section. And I did that with the model, did with the optimization objective, the constraints, everything. I used the comments to create different sections visually for myself in this notebook. And that's one trick I love using. I use it day to day. What else did I do? I made a lot of things variables. Not everything's a variable. You can see my imported parts are not variables. My implicits are also not variables because they don't really need to be. I'm not going to be using my final part in 6 places. So I have no real reason to make that a variable. Now, the variables, everything I made a variable is made a variable for a reason. I made my top op a variable because I reference it in my smoothen body, right? If I didn't make this a variable, I'd have the entire topology optimization tree cascading down my notebook, and that would be just too much to look at. So that's why that's a variable. My load cases are variable, so I can keep my optimization objectives smaller, make everything a little bit easier to read. One trick we like to use, well, one tip we like to do at nTop is if you get 3 to 4 blocks nested, is usually when we start to create a variable. Not always, but that's usually a good indication that, okay, maybe I should think about making this a variable. And that if you take a look at my mesh, we have 4 blocks, and then I made it a variable. And I kind of followed that through everything here as much as possible. On top of that, with the comments, you know, I used them for sections, and the reason I don't have any other things like FE mesh or something like that is because it kind of breaks up those sections I was making. So any additional information I wanted to put about my parts, I nest 1 block down. So if I want to know a little bit about my component, I can come into the comments for this FE component here. Anything I need. And now I took that away a little bit. We can check here, but so we can come in here and you can nest your comment. So we could do 400,000 elements with 2 millimeter edge length just so you have a point of reference for when you start changing your edge length, right? We know that it's 400,000, it says it there, but if we changed it, it would be different. You can say that, you can say tie 6.4, you can give yourself all that information and you nest it one down so it doesn't appear on this top level. And that's something I really like to do, to take use of comments as much as possible. And you could do that with everything in here, everything. You can see my top op's not running. This is how I was changing some things. It would take too long to rerun, but we can always go back and look at our final result in our unorganized notebook. But organizing this notebook has all of these different types of advantages. So to summarize how to organize a notebook or how to begin organizing it, it's going to vary project by project, person by person, but top down, try and keep things in sections, use variables when you have 3, 4, 5 nested blocks. And that way you're going to create this parametrically designed stuff and add extra comments. Even up here in the description of my notebook, I went in here and said, my goal is to reduce the mass of the bracket as much as possible while maintaining the strength requirements, and the method was topology optimization with a minimization of compliance. So now if I send this to somebody else without giving them any information, they have enough to understand what's happening. There's a lot of different things you can take advantage of in the notebook to keep yourself organized. Today's a little different in that sense where that's what we're talking about. And that's kind of the tips and tricks I wanted to show off there. So if there's any questions, go ahead and start asking them in chat and I'm happy to answer anything. So there's a question about the load cases. So not quite about the organization, but about the topology optimization top op itself. And I'm happy to answer that. So can the load cases be taken into account alternatively or alternately? So if we came into our optimization and you wanted one that took into account 1, 2, and 3, just 1 and 3, just 1 and 2, just 2 and 3, and all those different combinations, you would just have different topology optimization blocks. So this optimization objective has all 3 of them, but you could create another top op, link it to our model, create a new objective, and only put in the 2 that you want. So we could put in 3. Well, you have to give it a structural compliance, but all that sort of stuff. Structural compliance. And when I do this, I'd be easily able to go ahead and say, okay, what I want is just 2 and 3 this time. 2 and 3. And now we're running a topology optimization if I gave it some constraints here. So we could bring that guy in there. Now this topology optimization is running just for load cases 2 and 3 and not all 3. So this is how you could easily take into account the different combinations of those load cases because we set it up super easy to understand and very easy to go through. That was an awesome question. Why didn't I make my implicits variables? The only reason I didn't make my implicits variables because I knew this was the final step of my notebook. And I knew I wasn't going to reference them anywhere. Could I have made them variables? Absolutely. I could go in here and I could say make variable to keep the aesthetic if I wanted to, but it didn't matter to me that much because I knew I wasn't going to be referencing them anywhere. So I just built them piecewise and I could still come in and change things in places. But I got a little lazy at the end, essentially. That was just a good point to clarify there. And you can see the difference here in how easy it would be. And I'll maximize this for us here. How easy it would be for someone to understand what's happening on the left-hand side, my good notebook, my really well-organized notebook, versus if I gave them this hot mess, it'd be pretty difficult. So even for yourself, you come back a month later, man, this isn't going to make any sense, but this will, and that's totally fine. I build my notebooks like this, and then I clean them up afterwards, just to make them a little bit easier. That's kind of the nature of the beast here. Now, please, any more questions? Ask away. Ask away. This was a little bit different. We weren't looking at necessarily functionality or capability. We were looking at organization. So I'm glad you guys came in, tuned in. I hope it was helpful. I really hope you guys learned something today. Is there a search feature in nTop to find sections? There's not currently. So I couldn't come in here and say, you know, Control F or anything like that just to find our section. But these are just comments. So you have to scroll through to find. But that's an interesting thing, though. Maybe I'll talk to somebody about that. A bit of a search feature. All right, questions are leveling out. To recap, we talked about organizing our notebook and making it work for us, making it do the work that we don't want to do in the future. And that's what we did. We made use of variables to make that happen. We made use of comments to create these sections and to organize our notebook. We used naming. You can see all of these are really, really well named. You know, I have load faces 1, load faces 2, both of them fixed faces, element count, load case 1, 2, and 3. All these names help even further. I did all that and I worked top down. So step by step, I go downward. So it makes logical sense. And this will save you time, effort, headaches in the future, and just give you a lot of added value. So thank you guys for attending this nTop Live. If you want to learn more about anything, top-op, simulation, just nTop in general, go to nTop. We have a lot of upcoming things like all these nTop Lives that we do. We have virtual workshops every other week. Join us for those. We have a webinar coming up about our new capabilities that we're adding in the new release. And that's going to be a really awesome one. I suggest tuning into that. And always go to our support site. We have tutorials and we have example files you can download. And I believe not exactly this file here, but a file dealing with this bracket in Topology Optimization is available. So again, thanks for joining. Have a great Friday, and hopefully I'll see you soon.